Hey friends, I'm Clark. Welcome to Method Unstoppable, the art and science of achieving more. Today, we're talking about grit. Have you ever been in a situation where you just wouldn't quit? Or have you ever had the regret of quitting something you shouldn't have? Why is it that sometimes we quit or give up early and other times we feel unstoppable? Well, according to Angela Duckworth, the answer resides in two specific traits. You see, back in 2016, Angela Duckworth published a book based on her research into the science of achievement. And she asked the question, what makes highly successful people become so? Now, through her research, she found that people who had both passion and perseverance were most likely to succeed. The mix of these traits she called grit. More specifically, she defines grit as the tendency to sustain interest in and effort toward a long-term goal. And guess what? These traits are not things that we're just born with. We can build them. And today we're learning about how to build grit by developing our passion and perseverance. With these two traits, we can become unstoppable. So let's dig in. Before grit was coined and popularized by Duckworth, psychologists studied other topics in the field of achievement and high performance. In the 70s, there was a guy named Alfred Bandura who shared his theory of self-efficacy. At its core, self-efficacy is the belief in your own ability to succeed in specific situations or to accomplish a task. Bandura argued that it's not our abilities themselves that determine whether we succeed. It is our belief in those abilities. Bandura argued that self-efficacy was comprised of four components: mastery experiences, vicarious experiences, social persuasion, and emotional states. Regarding mastery experiences, he said that when you succeed at something, especially something hard, it builds the belief of, I can do this. He noted that each success strengthens confidence, and also each failure, if we reflect on it, offers data so that we can adjust and learn. With vicarious experiences, he noted that seeing someone similar to you succeed builds the sense that we can too. If they can do it, maybe I can do it. I remember having this experience in college. I was 20, I was getting into health and fitness, and I was working at a store selling clothes. And one day, a classmate of mine came in to buy some jeans, and we got to talking about her health and fitness journey. And she shared with me that she was already a certified personal trainer and yoga instructor. And I remember thinking, holy smokes, you can do that? Oh, I can do that too. What am I waiting for? And so I went and got certified. Other people's achievements demonstrate what is possible for us as well. With social persuasion, this is about encouragement and feedback from others and how it shapes what we believe is possible. So when someone credible says, hey, you've got what it takes, I believe in you, it can shift our internal narrative and our beliefs. And regarding emotional states, he noted how we interpret stress, anxiety, and our energy, and how that interpretation impacts our sense of ability. So for example, we might have a physiological state of stress, which could be perceived as either excitement or fear. Now, high performers learn to reframe that fear response or that stress response into one of excitement and readiness. Bandura's self-efficacy model for achievement leads to this reinforcing loop. So we take action because we believe that we can. And then we succeed because we took that action. And then because we succeeded, we believe even more that we can do it, and so we act again. And if we fail, then we get to reflect and learn and then get back in the game. Bandura's self-efficacy model is 50 years old, and it's still awesome. And aside from Bandura, there's other theories about achievement. So for example, you might have heard that achievement is all about practice. Anders Ericsson wrote a paper in '93 describing that high-achieving people achieve mastery because they practiced for 10,000 hours over a 10-year period. Now, this concept was popularized by Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers in 2008. Ericsson said, though, the difference between expert performers and normal adults reflect a lifelong period of deliberate effort to improve performance in a specific domain. The best musicians, athletes, skilled workers alike all mastered their craft through deliberate practice over the course of 10 years. For the record, you do not have to practice for 10,000 hours to get good at something. His argument was that the masters, the best in the world, all practiced that much. And of course, practice is important, but what Ericsson did not state is what it took for these individuals to practice for such a duration. Duckworth would say they had grit. The study of achievement has also come from the work of positive psychology, learned industriousness, and other fields in psychology. And we can't forget about Napoleon Hill's work with the high achievers of his day, like Andrew Carnegie and Henry Ford, and that led to his books, The Laws of Success and Think and Grow Rich. While all of these models and discussions are valuable, Angela Duckworth created a method to quantify a person's grittiness to track their success and predict their success. In her seminal paper on the topic, she was able to use her grit scale to better predict which students would drop out of West Point. This is one of the hardest institutions to get into, and 1 out of 5 cadets drop out in the first 2 months. And they learned that intelligence and previous achievement was not a good predictor of success, but Duckworth's grit scale was. And her research not only covered students at West Point, she's also looked at Army Rangers and sales professionals and more, all of which showed that grit predicted success. Let's talk more about what grit is and how we can build it. Duckworth asked the question, what makes highly successful people become so? And in her research, she found that grit was the best predictor of achievement. But what is it? Well, it's the combination of passion and perseverance. Passionate people chase an interest. They know what they want and can be obsessed with the topic. Perseverance is all about driving to improve. It is about stamina and not intensity. And she even writes, enthusiasm is common, endurance is rare. When you think about these two ideas, where would you say your passion lies? How willing are you to persevere? Well, if you're like me and like most people who are interested in this topic, you probably struggle with both. Let's shift into how we can build both passion and perseverance so we can become more gritty. Here's a big question. Do we discover our passion or do we create it? Now, I was taught through the ether that our passion is something we discover. It's something that we seek and we find, something we have to search for. But now I know and will believe that that is BS. We hear this all the time in commencement speeches from successful people. Find your passion and you'll never work a day in your life. And life is short, so find your passion and work on it. But this advice comes from individuals who now have that feeling of passion. But who's to say they had that passion from the start? The idea that you can find your passion assumes that it's out there just waiting to be discovered. Now, Cal Newport argues for the opposite perspective. He writes in his book, So Good They Can't Ignore You, that the vast majority of people aren't born with pre-existing passions waiting to be discovered. Now, instead, our passion is something we create by building skills and getting good at something. We do work, we build a skill, we get better at that skill, we realize what is possible with that skill, and then we are passionate about it. I had this experience with my first passion of fitness. I was fascinated by how the body worked and the complexity of physiology. That curiosity led me to dive into learning more. I got my bachelor's in kinesiology and then my master's in exercise science. I read a ton of books and I watched a ton of videos. And I experimented on myself. And then I got into personal training. And I sucked at first. I didn't know how to train others, but I loved working with people and learning how to help them achieve more. But I was not yet passionate. Over time, I built more skills. I got better and learned more things. And then one day I found I had a passion for fitness. It started as an interest, then I developed skills, then I became passionate. Now, doing some napkin math, I probably put in about 8,000 hours of deliberate practice in the space of personal training and fitness. Not enough to master it, according to Anders Ericsson, but enough to be dangerous and surely enough to develop a passion. Now, since then, my work has evolved into leadership development, where I've put in at least 5,000 hours and look forward to the next 5,000. My experience mirrors how Angela Duckworth writes about growing a passion. She notes that passion does not arrive overnight. We must build passion through steps. We must first find an interest. Second, we have to develop that interest. Third, then we discover the passion. So consider where you're at with your passions. Have you already created a passion? Or maybe you're in the interest phase. If you're struggling to find your passion, there are 2 places that we can begin to look. First is in your current skills. What are you good at? What are you learning to be good at? If you're showing up to work and learning things, then where are you building your skills? Your skills are the first place to look for a brewing passion. Aside from the skills that you're learning, what are you curious about? What are the things that you just can't stop learning about? Your interests are also a place to find your brewing passions. If you've identified the skills that you're developing and or the things that you're curious about, how can you continue to develop those skills and interests? Can you keep learning? Can you keep practicing? This actually reminds me of John C. Maxwell. He's an industry leader in leadership. And he tells a story when he was building his skills in leadership development. He was reading and learning, and he committed to giving at least 2 years of his journey towards just learning about leadership. And after a year, he stopped asking himself how much he could learn. And he started asking himself, how far can I go? That's what happens when you commit to an interest. You lean in and you continue to learn and grow. Once you get good at something and that thing is aligned with your interests, it is a short step to having a passion. But remember, passion is only half of the equation. We must also consider perseverance. Perseverance is the decision to keep moving forward. In Grit, Duckworth lists some traits of people who persevere. They're driven to improve. They have no expectations of catching up to their ambition. They feel as though they're never good enough. They are satisfied being unsatisfied. And they also have a clear sense of where they're going and where they want to be. She notes that passion serves as a compass pointing you in the right direction. But friends, perseverance keeps you going. And it can only take hold when you know where you're going. When you know where you're going, you have a North Star guiding you. Robin Sharma said something memorable about clarity. He said, "Clarity precedes mastery." The more clear you can get on what you want to create in life, the more focused you will be in your daily behaviors. With clarity comes direction and focus. With focus comes intentional effort. With intentional effort repeated over time, that leads to achieving your goals. So friends, how do we create clarity? Well, it may not be easy, but it is simple. We simply choose what we want in life. Choose what you want in your personal life, in your family life, in your working life. What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? What do you want to experience? How do you want to grow? All of these questions are worth asking and reflecting upon. And there's one more question we must ask if we are really to create clarity. That question is why. Our why is our purpose, and it can serve as a fire of motivation. It can serve as the motive of discipline. Duckworth states that purpose is what we do that matters to people other than ourselves. I love this. It's an acknowledgement that purpose is not self-serving. If we have a purpose, it is, or at least it should be, in some shape or form about impacting other people. Given that we're social animals, most people have a desire to have a positive impact on others. Nietzsche famously said, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." Purpose gives us patience, courage, energy, and hope. Friends, what is your why? Who are you trying to impact? What is the better version of the world or your world that you're striving to build? Now we know that passion and perseverance lead to grit. When we develop a passion, create a clear vision, and articulate a why, we have a recipe for grit. But we still need to execute. So for this, we ought to talk about two things: goal hierarchies and mindsets. And yes, mindsets, plural. There's not just one. There's not just one mindset. And we shift our mindsets oftentimes depending on the environment we're in. So for example, you may have an abundance mindset in your approach to your career as opposed to the scarcity mindset. You may believe that the opportunities in the world are unlimited and the world is your oyster. But you may also not bring an abundance mindset to your relationships. You may believe that dating opportunities are scarce or that love is scarce. You might have a growth mindset in your relationships, but a fixed mindset at work. There is not just one mindset, and not just one mindset that follows you everywhere in every situation. But to practice grit, a growth mindset is necessary for perseverance. The growth mindset was popularized by Carol Dweck in her book, Mindset. And in her book, she summarizes her research and findings on how our thoughts and our beliefs, our self-talk, impact our effort. And she discovered that essentially there are two kinds of people. There are fixed mindset folks and growth mindset folks. The fixed mindset folks believe that their abilities are static. They can't get better or smarter over time. They're born with what they have. These fixed mindset individuals also saw failures as threats to their identity, so they were more likely to quit, to cheat, and to make excuses. The growth mindset folks, on the other hand, believed that they could improve over time, and they saw failures as opportunities to learn. While walking the gritty path, we are going to run into challenges, into obstacles and failures. Those who persevere and learn from the experiences have a growth mindset. They're able to learn and adjust their actions to adapt and to better align with what they want. Those who do not learn from setbacks are suffering from a fixed mindset. These are stubborn folks who keep pushing on the door when the sign clearly reads pull. And of course, there are those who just quit straight out, but they don't have grit, they don't have perseverance. A growth mindset ensures that we learn and adapt from failure. And it helps us also expect that failure is going to happen. and that each experience is an opportunity to grow. Personally, I strive for a growth mindset even when it's tough. Whenever I fail, I ask myself, what can I learn from here? What can I do differently? Now, mind you, it still sucks to fail, and sometimes I get emotional about it. But overall, at the end of the day, I see losses as an opportunity to learn. I just have to ask myself the question, what can I learn from this? Another mindset to leverage for more grit is optimism. Duckworth's mentor is actually Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology. And she has a lot to say about the impact of positivity and positive self-talk on perseverance. In summary, optimism is better than pessimism. I'll do a longer talk on mindsets in the future because it will be a big topic. Aside from mindsets, when practicing grit, we also need to be clear on goal hierarchies. Now, a quick note on these. I love setting goals. I've not yet toyed with leveraging goal hierarchies. After reading Grit, I think this is something that I'll experiment with, and I'll share how it goes. Goal hierarchies are composed of high-level goals, mid-level goals, and low-level goals, organized like a hierarchy, like a pyramid. High-level goals are the big goals that you're shooting for. They are ends unto themselves. They are ultimate concerns. For example, one of my high-level goals is to enable and empower people to achieve more. All of my other goals align to achieve that end. And if you were to ask, but what does achieving that goal lead to? Like, what's it for? What's the larger goal? I'd say, no, that's it. That's the end. That goal is an end into itself. My mid-level goals would be the big things underneath that big goal that contribute to the high-end goal. For example, I want to build an audience on YouTube and with the podcast. I want to stay up to date on the latest research on leadership and human performance and productivity. If I can do those things, then I can achieve that higher level goal of enabling and empowering people to achieve more. Finally, lower level goals are the things to do on our to-do list, and they still ladder up to the mid-level goals. So for me, this would include specific outcomes. So write a script, read an article, film a video, you get the picture. These low-level goals are concrete and specific. What's important to recognize here is that goals have differing layers of scope. Small goals lead to bigger goals, which lead to bigger goals, which eventually lead to one big singular goal. And of course, not all of your low-level goals will be aligned to a single high-level goal. You may have a few high-level goals with a lot of low-level goals in each arena. And I would argue you should have a few high-level goals, one for your personal life, one for your career, one for your relationships. There is a risk, though, of having a ton of high-level goals. The more high-level goals that you have, then the more mid-level and low-level goals are required at the base of that hierarchy. The more low-level goals that you have on your to-do list, then the less time you have to spend on each goal. And eventually, you won't have enough time in the day if you have to accomplish 30 crucial low-level goals. You must prioritize. This is a hard fact for me to be reminded of. I love thinking that I can do it all. All I need to do is have more grit. Alas, everything is a trade-off. We cannot do everything. When thinking of top-level goals, there's a fun story about Warren Buffett and his pilot. You may have heard it, but it goes like this. Warren Buffett's pilot was asking him for advice on how to achieve more, achieve his goals. And Buffett had him do this exercise. He said, make a list of the top 20, 25 things that you want to achieve in life. The pilot does so. And then step 2, reorder those so that your top goals are on the top and they're just prioritized from top to bottom. So the pilot does so. And then Buffett looks at the list and said, circle the top 5 and cross out the bottom 20. They are distractions and will hold you back from achieving your top 5. Holy smokes, what a story. And how true. It's always a trade-off, friends. What are your top high-level goals? And then, what are your mid-level goals? What are you passionate about? What is the vision you're shooting for? And why is it important? Now, of course, Grit is not the only book which talks about achieving more. Duckworth is not the only psychologist looking at achievement. But what Duckworth did was to create a system to predict whether a person was going to achieve more or whether they were going to quit. That system, the Grit scale, is composed of 2 big buckets, passion and perseverance. And these are 2 things that we can create. They're things that we can choose. Hey, if you'd like to get more content like this to your email, I have a newsletter, which I will throw a link into the description. Also, I have affiliate links to all the books that I've referenced as well. And if you'd like to keep learning more on this journey and becoming unstoppable, check out this video. Thanks for being here, everybody. Until next time.